All right, everyone, it is 5 past the hour and we are live, so let's get started. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to give a quick reminder to check out our sponsors booth, which you could navigate to by clicking the booth button on your left. Once you're there, you can learn about the amazing companies and organizations here and enter to win some great prizes, including a $100 Amazon gift card. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Maryam Emami. Maryam is the CEO of AI Materia, a materials informatics platform company. AI Materia technology helps materials company discover, manufacture, and design advanced materials in 80% less time compared to traditional approaches. In addition to her role at AI Materia, Maryam works with materials and manufacturing companies as an advisor around digital transformation and innovation. She earned her Ph.D. and M.Sc. in chemical engineering from McMaster University and holds a bachelor's of science in petroleum engineering. She is also a designated professional engineer. Her primary interest is in the development and validation of physics-informed machine learning methods specific to applications in advanced manufacturing. Maryam will be giving us a talk on physics-informed machine learning methods for materials development. Please give a warm welcome in chat.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the introduction. As Peter said, my name is Maryam Emami from AI Materia. I am a material scientist, and today my talk is focused on materials applications, how we are using machine learning for material discovery. So what happens when we apply data-driven methods to physical system? How can we integrate domain knowledge into those models, and how can we get meaningful outcome from them? What I discuss today is broadly applicable to other applications of the physical science as well. So why do we need machine learning for materials research and development? It can take years to decades for a new material to reach the market. So the overreaching goal here is to accelerate material development. One of the reasons for this slow process is that we have very complex and high dimensional design space in typical research materials development problems. In each design problem, there are endless possibilities of ingredient combinations and ratios and processing parameters that define the final characteristics of the product. Only a tiny fraction of these possibilities has been experimentally investigated. So we are interested to explore this potentially new design space in a systematic way to find new materials that perform better than what has been known so far. And in this situation, current state-of-the-art experimental and computational approaches may not be feasible. And the huge majority of natural science problems typically fall under this category. And also there are scenarios in a design problem that the space may not be as vast as the previous category, but the problem is so complex that we cannot run experiments or simulations to completely investigate the space. So this is generally the case when the experiments or calculations are very time-consuming or expensive. And here it's very important to pick the best possible candidates by surveying the research space so the other resources are better utilized. So then the question is, why this is so hard? Why can't we just use the machine learning and AI methods that have been broadly applied to like EdTech or e-commerce for so long? Why can't we just take those same tools and transplant them onto material science? There are a few challenges in materials that makes them different from traditional machine learning applications. Here, I've listed 6 of them. And the most part of my presentation is going into each of these in more depth and how we approach them. So the first one is data format. It's true that in traditional machine learning applications, you might have heterogeneous data. Often you don't. But in materials application, our data is highly heterogeneous. So we get it from very different resources with very different formats. and it typically requires extensive feature engineering. So feature engineering is how we turn raw materials data into something that is useful for machine learning. For example, if the raw data is an image, we need some kind of transformation to make it usable for machine learning. The next challenge is data volume. In a lot of AI and machine learning applications, we talk about big data, millions or billions of data points. But this is not the case in material science. Our data sets are small, and each data point can cost tens of thousands of dollars to run new experiments. So we cannot get them for free. Another challenge is bias. Machine learning models require the data that includes a range of measurements. It needs the failures, also the success data points. And without it, the model will never predict a failure. But in materials space, failed results and experiments simply are not being collected. The next challenge, and I would say the opportunity here, is that we have established domain knowledge. We know physics and we can use it to our advantage. And we want to actually get some information back out of these machine learning models because we are scientists and we care about why they are making these given predictions. And we are also really care about uncertainty quantification. Each recommendation for a new design means investing lots of money, so we need to understand the output of models. And then the last is the prediction. So we are not just trying to do simple pattern matching in many cases. We are trying to find materials that are better than anything in the training set. So we are trying to extrapolate, and this is fundamentally could be one of the different goals compared to many applications in machine learning. And now I'm going to dive into more details of these challenges. So the first one I mentioned is data format. AI applications like consumer behavior and business intelligence obtain data from structured resources, such as form, surveys, and website analytics tools. In the materials and chemicals industry, data come from many different resources. It can be from test data, simulation data, reference data, and it can come in many different formats. So we have microstructure images, processing equipment, chemical formulas, X-ray diffraction data, and this list goes on and on. So this means our data sets are often highly heterogeneous and very unstructured. And integrating data from different resources requires a deep understanding of materials and detailed information on the pedigree of the data. To use this diverse data, first we need an easy way to get our data into a centralized database, and then we need to structure that data that has in a way that has the right balance of flexibility and uniformity. And this can be done by using a data model to capture the history of a material, including raw ingredients, processing steps, and testing parameters. This will help material developer to relate the digitized version of the material to the material itself. So the next one would be data volume. As I mentioned, big data is a phrase commonly associated with AI and machine learning. Companies with millions of customers or thousands of sensors can quickly and cheaply collect billions of data points, and in a very controlled way. In materials industry, each row of data can cost months of time and tens of thousands of dollars to obtain. Available data sets are often small and incomplete, and we are talking about maybe 100 data points or sometimes even less. Suppliers, for example, may not provide a data point that is unfavorable to their product, which leaves a hole in the data set. So in a machine learning approach for materials, it has to work with small and sparse data sets. And to overcome this challenge, we are using transfer learning, in which information from one data set is used to inform a model on another. This is an effective tool for connecting sparse data in the material space when we can maintain the differences in the core measurements. The next challenge is data bias. Bias in data sets is common in all AI applications, but there are two unique forms of sample bias which is exclusive to materials data. First is the lack of failed data. So machine learning models require data that includes the range of measurements. We need failed data, also we need success data. So no matter how advanced the algorithm, it cannot accurately evaluate if a candidate material can meet performance criteria if it does not have a distribution of successes and failures in the training data. R&D data and scientific publications have a tendency towards successful results, and data from failed experiments just simply won't be captured and recorded. And the second one is process and measurement variations. So processing equipment can cause variations in sample measurements, even at the same composition. So these variations can be from the equipment choice, from measurement techniques, and also even the person who is performing the experiment. So there are different strategies that can help material data against these biases. So one of them would be testing and measuring reference samples to normalize results. Another one is using materials-specific cross-validation techniques when training machine learning models to avoid overfitting to biased data. And the other one is treating data from successful and failed experiments as assets to encourage sharing all valuable information for future research and development. So the next one is domain knowledge. The laws of physics and chemistry are not applicable in typical machine learning applications. Data scientists in consumer or business intelligence applications can rely on large data sets and out-of-the-box algorithms to analyze data and find new insights. In the material space, with a sparse data set, it is critical to integrate domain knowledge into the machine learning workflow. So the first place this happens is when we are choosing which candidate material to predict properties for. This can be based on a database of the candidate from previous work, or a set of rules can be created that reflect scientific knowledge of which candidates are physically possible and likely to be good. Domain knowledge can also be built directly into a machine learning model. So known analytical relationships and correlations can be built into a model to increase accuracy that take us to a better prediction and quicker R&D results. The next one is uncertainty. In many commercial machine learning applications, prediction uncertainty has little consequences. For example, for a movie streaming service like Netflix, if there is a 20% uncertainty used to recommend next movies for you to watch, this would have little impact on what movie a user would watch next. But a 20% uncertainty in a materials property could define the next trial for a costly experiment. So quantifying uncertainty in each model and each prediction helps materials developers to understand machine learning models' output, to act on model prediction, and choose the best experiments. And visualization and showing the likelihood of reaching performance target can also guide R&D direction and project selection. And the last one is the prediction. AI is great for pattern recognition. Typically, a model is trained on a large data set of known information, and the model accurately predicts into which category a new example fits. For example, if we have a large set of pictures of roses and sunflowers, We might be interested to know, can a model accurately predict if the next photo is a rose or a sunflower? But in material design, we are not interested in finding existing cases. So the goal here is to explore higher performing and outlier materials that push the limits of the existing properties. So here, active learning is the approach to address this challenge. An initial data set can be used to train a machine learning model that suggests which candidates to make and test next. And the result from new experiments will improve the accuracy of the model and get closer to the desired property or performance profile. This process ensures that experiments are selected with data-driven insights rather than trial and error, which results in reducing the number of experiments, time, and cost to meet R&D goals faster. So machine learning can be used to accelerate material development, but as we discussed, materials data present many unique challenges different from traditional AI applications. These challenges demand a tailored approach, and this is what we do at AI Materia. We have developed materials-specific AI approach to help researchers and material developers to accelerate product development and to use data to guide R&D strategy and to facilitate knowledge transfer and AI assets across an organization. So here is a case study to demonstrate how we at AI Materia help a development project of an advanced composite material for using in submarines, which was a project with a massive design space. Actually, I led this project a few years ago during the time that I was an experimental researcher. And by using conventional methods, my team was able to complete this work within 2 years. If I had access to the AI Materia technology, this project could have been completed in 9 months, and the product could have been introduced to the market 15 months earlier, when we had a very serious competition at the market. And considering the high cost of each trial, I could have saved more than $4 million and delivered the result at a 70% lower budget. And we have proven records and successful cases of partnership with materials and manufacturing companies. I just wanted to share 3 of them with you. In a project for material design, we designed a new titanium alloy for additive manufacturing application. Titanium alloy is frequently used in 3D printing. It has excellent mechanical properties and corrosion resistance, but relatively low thermal conductivity. So the purpose of this project was to propose a new titanium alloy recipe that would be a viable material for printing heat exchangers for aerospace applications and with the highest thermal conductivity and without compromising the current mechanical properties. So 20 physical properties we considered from 250 historical alloys to generate a machine learning model of the properties of interest. Using our technology, we proposed a new titanium-based alloy composition to maximize both thermal conductivity and tensile strength. The material design process that would normally take around 2 years was reduced to less than 4 months in this project. Another project was for a 3D printing application as well. So the company needed to optimize the processing parameters for a new material, and the goal was to maximize the tensile stress, which is a mechanical property of the printed parts. So we proposed a design of experiments considering 7 processing attributes. Using machine learning tools and our technology, we provided the company with the range of processing parameters for optimized operation and the information for the point of diminishing returns in their process. And in another project, we had, this was for the purpose of characteristics prediction. So here the goal was to find the right composition and the processing parameters that lead to the highest fatigue strength in steel. Our input data set included 437 experimental observations for steel with 9 composition and 16 processing attributes. After comparing the performance of more than 40 different modeling configurations, we developed a fast and accurate prediction model for the steel product with an extremely high cross-validation accuracy of 98%. Using machine learning and materials informatics for advanced materials and advanced manufacturing application has matured from a niche area of research into an established discipline, and best practices for applying domain-specific approaches are emerging. And at AI Materia, we are looking forward to modernizing materials R&D space in every sector. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much for the amazing talk, Maryam. We do have around 9 minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, please type it in chat. I'll do my best to get to them. So our first question is, could you elaborate a little bit more on the types of model that you use for, I guess, some of the case studies that you mentioned?
Okay, so I would say so there are different types of projects that we are working on. So I wouldn't say that there is a specific model that we are working or there is a specific algorithm. So as I said, in the steel project, we tried out 40 different models to understand what is happening in that system and how we can capture all the patterns in terms of the physical behavior that is happening during the making of that steel product. So every project is different. So right now I'm not saying, but anyway, deep learning is one of the things that absolutely we are using. Our forestry is another one. I'm just saying these are some of the common ones, but absolutely could be a different model based on the project that we are working on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And in terms of, I guess you mentioned 6 different areas that in material development that machine learning is very unique in. You have a very unique position in the sense that you're part of the work that is kind of revolutionizing the industry, and you're also helping with digital transformation, and innovation. So out of the 6 areas, where do you think companies really struggle in, and maybe they're actually putting a lot of effort, and vice versa, where they're actually putting a lot of effort and might actually have a lot of promise in?
Yeah, the one that I mentioned, something that I have to explain to every customer that I'm working with is about the bias area that I mentioned, about the failed results. So basically, when we are, we do mining of the, the data base for every project, and we also work with the customer's data in order to start the project. So in almost all cases, all we have is success data. We do not have the failure data. So this is some of the things that we need to communicate with our customers. So absolutely, the success is something that we are looking for. But whatever you are doing that hasn't been successful is something that absolutely help us to, for our model to predict what you are looking for. So this has been a huge, I would say, education on our side from them. And some of those challenges that I mentioned, these are just the nature of materials R&D. So when I'm talking about the small data sizes, so this is the way it is. We cannot do anything about it. We just need to find the suitable, the appropriate models that can help us in order to find what is the goal of the project. And the other thing that is very important is always important to capture the physics and the chemistry of the product. So every project that comes in, in the simplest way, so we have a set of starting material, we have treating processes, and we have the product. So we always try to just expand the starting materials to lots of features, because this is how the chemistry is. And then at the end, when we are just studying the properties or the attributes of the product at the end. This is where the physics is very, very important. Sometimes there was a project that it had 4 criteria in terms of the final product, and we could see the pattern for 3, and the 4th one we were not able to do it. And the way that we did it is we use the output, one of those models, for predicting one of those 3 first properties in order to model the 4th one. So this is how we are just trying to understand the physics and chemistry. But these are the things that is specifically for on the machine learning side, nothing on the materials or manufacturing side.
And our next question would be, I guess, a little bit more on how does the modeling and testing process interact? Is it mostly one followed by another, or do they happen concurrently?
So what happens is, at the very beginning, we try to collect as much data as possible. And so mostly it's the best resource for us is the customer, but we always do the mining of all the public and private resources that we have access to. So we start with this data in order to make I would say design of experiment, a smart design of experiments, and give the best recommendation and suggestions to our customers to get the very first steps of the experimentation. So this is what I call active learning. So it means we start with the available data. Sometimes there is, if the project is absolutely original, there is no data. So we start with a smallest size of the design of experiments, and then when we run the experiments, we take those results back to our system in order to retrain our models. So right now, the patterns are it gets more smarter, and the results that we get at the end would be much closer to what we are looking for. So if this happens, if the getting to the result happens at the first step, amazing, but this is not actually, most of the time this is not the case. So this active learning, or the other term is sequential learning, continues to finally we get to the point. But rather than going blinded, or just trial and error, this is something that I did for so many years. So we didn't know exactly what would be our next step. But right now we have this data to guide the next steps for doing the material development project.
So I think that's it for the questions. I want to be cognizant of your time. If the audience has more questions, what is the best way to reach you?
So they can just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I also my email address would be, if they send an email to info@aimateria.com, definitely I will get the emails, and definitely we can continue the conversation.
Awesome. Sounds good. And thank you so much, Maryam, for joining us today. And thank you everyone in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.